Hi.
Sorry, I just got to record. Okay.
Petra just said she listened back to one we did and we forgot to intro them. We didn't actually say who it was, so I've got to do it. So when this person comes on, when she comes on, we need to say...
When she comes on. Okay, so you're trying to double bluff me there.
yeah, that was a dumb... I was annoyed at my...
Yeah, but now you're playing a game going, I was annoyed at my... So I don't know what's going on.
You have to spin round as well, by the way. Go on.
Yeah. Fuck, I hate this.
You've not done one of these, have you? A spinny round?
No.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
You pulled your headphones out. Oh, fuck's sake. Hello?
Right, so can we practice?
Hold on, let me...
Do you want to explain what's going on?
Okay, so, turn around. I want to get a grab of it as well. David has turned his back on the camera, so he can't see when it's got a surprise guest coming on, and David doesn't know who it is. And when we do this now, the person who doesn't know has to face away. So they turn around, and when the person's on, we'll go, oh, there you go. That's it. So it's quite tense. So how are you feeling, David? You've not done one, have you?
No.
Makes you feel a bit vulnerable, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got butterflies. And I actually thought then, I think I'm going to play this cool.
Whoever it is.
Yeah, I think that was
That's your little safety net.
I'm not planning on, but I just thought, what am I going to do here? I think I'm just going to play it. And they might be watching me now. I don't even know if they're there now. They might be hearing all this. Oh, I don't know.
Don't get cross with it.
Oh my God, if it's Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen, I'd just go, what the fuck? What is happening?
If it is Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen, I'll go, what the fuck? It's not who I booked.
So you said, when she... So that's you going, I'll try and trick him. And he's going to go, it's not a she, it's a he. But that's you're double bluffing, so it is a she. There's no way you would have triple bluffed me. It's a she.
But triple bluff is essentially...
It's Charlie Dimmock.
How did you find out? Clever clogs.
Is Charlie there now?
Yeah, she's been there the whole time. Dimmock!
You're quite relaxed, so it's definitely someone you know. Because if it wasn't someone you'd be scared as well. You're being very relaxed.
You know me too well.
I hate
You've done
this.
it again, David. Like always, you've got it right. Right.
What?
They've arrived.
Oh my God.
Right. I can't. If you can hear me, guess, can you please not say anything straight away because David has his back to us. Please don't say anything if you can hear us.
I don't think this is Charlie Dimmock.
Okay. So yeah, John, can you come on? This person is. This person is. Yeah. So.
Right. So you know them well enough to iMessage.
No, it's not. They're messaging on the Zoom chat, which I've never seen before. This is a different level.
I hate this.
Right. So, guess, can you come on the camera because David's got his back to us, so we can see your face. Hello, mate. Okay.
Hello, mate. Hello, mate. Hello, mate.
So the person's now here, David.
Right.
So if you want to turn round.
No, I'm not going to bother.
All right, we're not doing it. Then. Thanks for coming.
Oh no!
Hello. Crunch, crunch, you pack of twats.
Hello. How are you?
Hello.
Stuart?
I'm really well. It's lovely to see you.
Right. We forget to introduce who it is.
Sorry, my brain is just thinking, right, how's the next hour going to go? I hate this.
Let's do a com pod with David.
Woohoo! Oh God, of course. I mean, I hadn't thought that it could be that, but it could be an ambush com pod.
Yeah,
this is really what Joe's got you on for, Stuart.
Yeah, if that's all right. I'd love to dissect David's thinking, his process.
Oh, yeah, let's do that because he'll really hate it.
Stuart Goldsmith is our surprise
my God.
guest. And Stuart has one of my favourite podcasts in the world.
Oh,
I know it is ComCom Pod, but it's Comedian Podcast. And I think this is fair to say Stuart's gift is what's I don't know how to say this, but you get the most out of people, don't you?
Good luck, Stuart. Good luck, Sam.
My favourite bits on your pod is when you go, no, keep going. And when they're sort of opening up.
Well, okay. Okay. So I think Brett Goldstein. I tricked Brett onto the.
I saw that
podcast because he's. Did you hear that one?
I saw that live. I think it was on Twitch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
It was the pandemic. Everything was on Twitch. It's not on Twitch anymore. I basically Brett didn't want to come on the show for years. He's listened to every single episode, and we're talking 419 episodes.
Yeah.
And Brett Goldstein said we're friends, and he said he wouldn't come on the show because he said you're really good at calling people on their shit.
Yeah.
And I don't know what my shit is, and I don't want to get called on it. So I had to I didn't trick him on. I kind of said, let's do a podcast about something else. And it did genuinely turn into that.
But
So
didn't you say, right, we're going to pause now as Brett needs to talk to me in private?
Oh, God, that was that one.
I'm sure you did, didn't you?
This is what I mean. Is like you corner people and then they open up and then probably hate themselves afterwards.
I don't know. I sometimes get a text in
That might be me. Basically.
I get a text in the sort of 48 hours afterwards where people go, was that all right? Was that awful? That's what they say, but it isn't awful. Listen, you know it better than I do, right? I'm too busy having the conversations. You've heard it. I don't think I corner people, but I do seem to have a facility.
Doing it now, Stuart.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also going, can we please focus on David? But right, what do I mean? It's like you go, no, let's keep talking about this. Because, I tell you what you do is you're very good at noticing people's defense mechanisms to kind of get out of telling what's actually happening, what they're actually thinking.
I want to note now that David's body language is very subtly defensive.
I don't think it's that subtle. He's literally moving away from
I'm
the
not
mic.
going to move. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at your right shoulder is sort of dropped a little bit, like you're sort of like you're doing 1% of squaring up for a fight, but you're just like, oh
no, Stuart!
Stop reading us.
I don't. I know that some people. I think the weird thing is people of your kind of year at school in comedy.
Oh,
yeah. We're of a similar year.
We're the same year, aren't we? Aren't we the same year?
Well, me and Joe did a group show at Edinburgh with Lee Bannard and Diane Morgan. So we were very much.
Yeah.
What year was that? Look at me now. Relax. What year was that, by the way?
I think it was 2003.
Oh, okay.
I started 2004. Yeah. So so about the same year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, and my memories of that are very funny because I don't know, Dave, Lee Bannard was probably before your time.
I remember Lee Bannard. No,
do you remember Lee?
Yeah.
Brilliant comic. All the way through, I refer to him every so often on the podcast because what I loved about his set was that seeded throughout his set was the implication that he was an arsonist, which is for a one-liner comic, it was just magical. But he had a certain energy, and Joe had Joe energy, and Diane Morgan was doing stand-up at herself at the time. And it was like these three people who were just brilliant joke writers, but absolutely bloody miserable the entire time. And I turned
the
up
biggest show-offs in the world, probably, Stuart.
Once again, we need to veer this towards Steve.
But I used to bounce in going, come on, I felt like a scout leader. Come on, everyone, we're going to get through this. It's going to be fine. And it must have been unbearable looking back because I think everyone would have been happier. There was always arguments over not arguments, but it was like, can you compare, please? Because we said we'd take turns in comparing. And I can't think of a less natural compares than Diane, Joe, or Lee.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Well, maybe you shouldn't be, Joe. Maybe it's time to just let loose and show the real Joe.
But it's David we're here to talk about.
Yeah, it really is.
It doesn't have to be.
Well, I do. I'm so excited. I love your podcast. I love it. And I'm really nervous coming on it.
Are
I'm
you?
really yes.
You have all the power. You're the one with the mind game.
I don't. It's because you. And I think there's so that we were talking about like our year at school at comedy.
Yeah.
Lots of us don't want to come on ComCom. They don't want to come on my podcast. And I why do you think it is? Because I've got my pet theories, some of which I don't want to say in case other people listen and go, "Oh, that's a good point." I guess I've asked you, Joe, and you've always declined very politely. David, I think I've asked you, but
you did ask me once back in the day.
I remember where I was, Stuart.
I was in the back of the car. I was at Latitude. And I thought, I've got the fucking message. He sent me the message.
Everyone remembers where they were the day they declined my podcast.
I remember genuinely as well. I also remember when, like, you've kind of asked me to come on the pod, and both times, or maybe like you said, "Come on, Joe, come on the pod," and I've been driving, and it's almost caused me to have like.
Oh, you've heard it. You've actually, that's
hilarious. I've been sort of driving somewhere, like, and it's always like, obviously on my own, because like just sort of listening to the pod, and you go, and then you say, "Come on, Joe, come on the pod." And, oh God, what?
Sorry about that.
And like, and then the next sort of 5 minutes, I have to sort of go, and then I think it is literally opening up too much.
Yeah, right.
That's what, and then going, fucking hell, why am I talking like this? Like, why am I?
Why would you not want to?
So here's... I don't know how familiar your listeners will be with my show, but David just did a really good impression of me.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what, Stuart? So back in the day when you asked me, what was my... I'll tell you what I thought. I thought, I'm going to remain an enigma.
Yeah.
So that people go, who's this guy floating in and out of clubs?
Sure.
And if I come on your pod, I'll reveal all that I'm just a twat.
Yes. There is a certain... I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Have you met others like that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
And there is almost, you have a vibe in common, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I do think it is out of a sense of not necessarily wanting to remain enigmatic, but we all know, it's almost like one of the good things about my podcast is also its downfall, which is that loads of comics listen to it. So I think comics get very self-conscious about, and I am known to, I do get people to open up, and the thing about my podcast is I listen. It's almost unique in comedy podcasting. I mean, it's not funny. I just ask a question that I hope is perceptive, and then I shut up and listen. And almost no one does that.
No.
So if you would like to...
now.
You just did that.
Yeah, I know, prat.
See? Even then you had to get a joke.
But you're doing it as well.
So I think that does scare certain comics, but
scares the shit out
because people are worried about opening up. But the reason I'm scared to be on this show is that, and I feel it panicking now, is because
on this show,
yeah.
What on earth have you got to be scared about this show?
Well, because I think of you two in particular as having like, and I don't know if this will make you laugh or not,
God,
but I think you've got a sort of an integrity, both of you individually as comics, that I fear I lack. I kind of like, I love how much integrity you've got. And so I feel like, oh God, I'm going to go on Chatterpix and be all bland and thin. And...
Oh my God, I'm loving this.
Yeah, I am. This is so
oh God, I'm doing a reverse ComCom.
This is
Stuart, but why do you feel like that?
No, but what do you think you're missing out on then, Stuart, with your performance?
What do I
don't want to sound like I'm on your podcast, but
well, here's the thing. So I watched Brian and Charles last night, right?
Oh, okay.
And I loved it, and I've been meaning to get around to it for ages. And I thought, well, I'm going on the show tomorrow. I've got to have seen it. So I watched it, and I was watching it on a train on the way back from London to Bristol. And I was crying on a train in a not in floods, but in a kind of like, I'm having a big visceral reaction to this. This is really like it's really simple. I described it to my children this morning. My children are 6 and 4, and my son, my 6-year-old, said I described what it's about, and he said, "Oh, he's stolen that from Scrap Man," which is like some kid book that he's got. And then my daughter, who's 4, and she was trying to join in, she said, "Yes, he's stolen it from the Jungle Book."
Yeah.
In many ways, it is an allegory of the Jungle Book.
Yeah, I watched that actually at the weekend. Yeah,
it's good. The live action one's good.
Yeah.
But so with specific reference to a thing I've seen recently, and also like I remember when I saw you at Mac Festival and you were doing the bit about you got a person out of the audience and they had to get from that side of the stage to that side of the stage before you could say Dorothy Perkins. Do you remember that bit?
Oh yeah.
God, I was crying. There was one. I brought a new friend to that show, and it really solidified our friendship because he was like, "Hey, he knows some cool shows," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can stick with me." You know?
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. There is something about the pair of you have this kind of commitment to, not like commitment to the bit, but it's almost like you do it even if no one came to see it because it pleases you. And that's a thing I struggle with because I do it and I'm so lacking in self-confidence that if I do a thing and people don't laugh at it, I just give up on it straight away. And I sort of follow the laugh. And my negative self-belief about myself is that I follow the laugh too much.
Right.
So it ends up being too broad. Whereas, but I do that because I like the idea of failure really terrifies me. Whereas you guys seem to be, it's a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
You guys are refreshingly unafraid to fail.
Yeah. I mean, personally, personally, I've only got one gear, I think.
I feel like that as well, yeah.
And so if I fail, I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's no other gear I can switch into. So I'll just keep working my way around the clubs to find that 2% of people that enjoy gear one. Because I really feel like that. There's a one way of I can sort of hopefully make people laugh. There aren't many.
But I feel like
ways.
people have said, like, I've been listening to people, probably on your podcast, actually, Stuart, going about how, I paraphrase, but they go, oh, and if it's going like that, I'll change it up or whatever. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm like, I've got these 6 things to say, and however it goes, I'm doing the next one. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no sort of, I don't have like as David says,
I remember that at the time whenever it was in 2000 something when we were doing that Edinburgh show. I remember you talking about that, and I remember I sort of remember, like, did you take a break after that? You stopped doing stand-up because you were like, this isn't going where I wanted to, and you took a break and then did something else or whatever, and then came back, and then that's when you started getting on TV, you started getting really successful. And I remember thinking that was so sort of brave to just stop doing the thing because it hadn't turned into what you wanted it to. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I've always seen it as like it was going a bit shit rather than like brave. I just sort of went, not very good, is it?
I love how this is turning on to Joe.
Yeah, this isn't going half the way I wanted it to go.
I love what Joe was thinking when he got you on and how it's so backfired.
If we make sure you don't interrupt each other, I can split the audio of this and do 2 episodes.
How's my body language now? Because I feel like my posture's changed quite a lot.
Well, you're doing that a lot.
Well, in the
I'm
last 10
also
minutes.
sat in a way that I've never sat before. Genuinely, I've crossed my legs. Is that
You've leant in, but I don't know whether that's just
and
because
and
the
I've
mic
got my
is...
hands like that, and I've never done that before.
Oh,
right.
What's that about? This
I
is
think
all my
that's-
fears coming true.
You're trying to... That gesture is that, and this is like the sort of, to describe it to the listener, it's the sort of steeple gesture, except you've sort of pushed the fingers into the crevices of the opposite hand, into the knuckles. So I think that gesture is sort of like, it's like a pretentious gesture for looking at a painting in a gallery mixed with self-defense, right? So you're thinking, but you're sort of protecting yourself.
I'm starting to feel like a wanker, I think.
I do have that effect on people.
Oh God.
This is madness.
Stuart, can I ask a question?
Yeah, I should say the first episode of Chattermix I ever listened to was the one where, Joe, you were the surprise guest live in person, and the first 15 minutes of the episode is just David cackling, and it's so confusing as to what's going on.
It was when you turned up and we didn't explain what had happened.
Oh, fucking hell.
That's the first episode I listened to. I was in tears. It was so funny. Because obviously I know you, and I was like, I wonder what... I'm hearing a lot about their podcast. I wonder what they're up to. And it was literally David sort of tutting in silence for 15 minutes. And then the second episode I listened to was the one where you listened back to that and commented on it. And I was like, this is the most kind of...
hard work, isn't it?
Oh, no, I loved it. Because I find it really hard to listen to other comedy podcasts, interviews, and it's kind of quite hard to watch other comedy sometimes because like it's a combination of feeling like it's like work and I want to unwind. I want to watch a heist movie or a time travel movie, or sort of mean something that isn't comedy related. And also probably there's a decent percentage of sort of greasy jealousy and I don't want to see other people being.
You're so good at saying that bit. You could have. Do you reckon you open up more? No, like it's good. Like, do you reckon doing the podcast and having to be really honest has made you more honest in general conversations?
Have you stolen that question from me? That's like, that's so my brand. That's a great question,
I've
Joe.
got a list of questions on it. Let's out Stu.
Yeah.
What was the question? Do I think that it's made me open up? Well, yes, definitely. Yeah, I really do, definitely.
Chatbix has for me, totally.
Yeah,
completely.
me too, yeah.
It's really helped. Yeah.
Well, I think I see that happen to people, like with radio shows with John and Ellis, when they were just like in the early days of them doing the radio show, because you just have to talk constantly, you can't help but be yourself. There's nothing to hide behind. So it's done. Concom has done that to me to an extent, but as I said, I'm often very quiet on the podcast. I try to be invisible. I try to, I remember hearing like the Maron, when he like the guest to be about to say something and he'd crash in with his opinion. Now, his podcast is brilliant and millions of people worldwide listen to it, partly because he stamps his personality onto it in a way that I don't. So maybe it's to my detriment. Maybe I'm just kind of scared of people not liking me. And so I try and be invisible. But over 10 years, it's grown into whatever it's grown into.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
I think I love it because it's your passion.
Can I say this is the most flattering thing I've ever done?
No,
I thought I was going to. I didn't expect to talk about me.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's a lovely
do
way to
this
spend
more,
the morning.
but without you asking us questions.
It's lovely.
No, but I do this. I weirdly go back and listen to some. I've got comfort apps. I go,
oh man.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say is I feel a lot of responsibility to everyone on the show that I have given a, forgive the expression, safe space. I try to make people comfortable when I say, what does it look like to you? The note I say to all my guests before we start recording is, my favourite bits are when my guest says, oh, this is going to sound really pretentious. And I go,
yeah, I love it when you go, you get excited. I can hear it in your voice.
I love it because I want to know what the world looks like from in there, right, for them. And I do recognise that on some level, when people open up, they make themselves vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's easy from the outside to go, whoa, what does that person think of themselves?
Yeah.
But I really respect them for telling the truth about it. So I am aware that some of the things, and there are episodes I've heard where there's a guest in particular who was, all I'll give you is they were American. And it's not Bill Burr. I'm just going to flag that as well. He was quite abrasive and what have you, but there was an American guest. And I was really kind of offended by, they were just really rude and dismissive of me at one particular bit. But even then, I'm asking them to share and give of themselves. So I can't sort of indulge in the scurrilous kind of like,
no, this is awful.
Wasn't this person a jerk? And there was a very famous person I met who is, a big fan of the show. And the first thing they said to me, I said, oh, apparently you're a big fan of the show. And they said, yeah, that fucking episode with so-and-so, eh? And I was a bit crestfallen. I was a bit like, they're my babies, right? And they have been kind enough to genuinely give of themselves. And sometimes, yes, of course, part of me goes, really?
But you must be licking your lips, Stuart.
Well, honestly, the ones that I really love, in a gig where you see someone in the front row and they've folded their arms and you think they're going to fucking hate this, and you win them.
Yeah.
I have a similar thing with, and it's so satisfying because you turn them round. I have a similar thing with a guest of the last 6 months, let's say, who I went into it thinking, God, I don't know about this. They seem a bit fake, or they seem a bit up themselves. And you will have heard me if you've heard lots of the show. Sometimes I come up against someone who is really entrenched in their view of themselves. And my self-appointed job is to challenge them on their preconceptions of themselves.
What I love.
Yeah, me too. And sometimes they go, no, you got that wrong. I'm just like this. And I think, well, you're not, are you really? And I feel I can see through it, but who knows? Yeah. There was someone in the last 6 months who I went into it thinking, I don't know if I even like part of me is like, oh God, either they're going to admit X, Y, Z or they're not.
Yeah.
And I came out of it thinking, I had totally the wrong impression of them.
Right.
I've done a total 180 on them. What an absolute, humble and thoughtful.
Yeah.
And actually, it made me readjust my preconceptions of them from watching their stuff and going, well, I know who you are. And I know why you've made that decision. And then suddenly I'm in danger of kind of reflecting inwards going, oh, it is just, if I see something that I think is like a bit of someone's set seems a bit contrived or a fake mistake, or, I'm very good at pointing out other people's fake mistakes. And I fucking do them from time to time, but I'll go, oh, I don't buy it. You're particularly people who are like, my brand is that I bear my soul. And you go, well, you're not because of this. Or my brand is I'm authentic. And you go, well, you're not because that's contrived. So I never know how much of me thinking that about an act is, it's all worth talking about and challenging someone on. You may be right, may be wrong, but I never know how much of it just boils down to jealousy because they're holding court.
Your battle with yourself is some of the not fun, I want to say, but you know what I mean. You sort of you go around little mazes with yourself, don't you? You know what I mean? Off the back of it, you go, oh, maybe I don't do enough of this, or maybe I do too much of it, and then you sort of project all this. And it's.
Well, I think that's the joy of it, is that you're basically voicing what we're all thinking.
Yeah, it's great, and you go, maybe I'm just jealous, or whatever, and you go, we all get jealous. It's
my mate Hamish. I've got Aussie mate Hamish, and he said to me years ago, he said, "Oh yeah, you like to give yourself a hard time, don't you?" And at the time, it's still 15 years ago, and I kind of went, it was almost like a badge of honor, like. Yeah, I do. I'm really tough on myself. And now I'm like, no, he's right. I've wasted a lot of time feeling bad and overthinking things when I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Some things you shouldn't talk about. Some things keep down. Some things you shouldn't talk about. Some things keep down. Keep it down, baby girl. You don't have to talk about everything that's going on in your life. Oh yeah, baby girl. You don't have to talk about everything that's going on in your life. Oh yeah, baby girl, baby girl, yeah. Oversharing, 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 oversharing.
Do you still see the purpose of it is to work out how to do it? Because that was the start, wasn't it? Like work out how to do
Is
content.
it fuck?
What do you think, David? What prompted that response?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do
pays
you
the
think
mortgage.
The purpose of it is now?
Pays the mortgage. That helps.
Don't be so
hanging out with
defensive, David.
friends.
Come on, not some funny answers. Let's have some.
Well, I think it's to feel less alone on the planet.
That's part of it. Hanging out with friends. You said that's interesting because there's an interesting. I didn't think I was going to talk about this. There's an interesting element of that whereby that is a very Stuart Goldsmith way to do something, in the sense that I have overdone and formalised a structure in order to hang out with as many friends as possible, rather than sitting down and having a nice cup of tea with an actual friend. Yeah, but do you know what I mean? What I don't do, because I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I don't know if it's ADHD or not, but I've got a very busy brain, and I drive myself really hard because I'm terrified I'm not good enough at anything and everything. And so what I do is I don't make time to sit and hang out with my friends. That's part of what I love about this. Your dynamic in your show is how just kind of like, it's just sort of, I don't know, like you might spend 10 minutes just talking about a fly in the background or something, and it's glorious and bonding and worth something. But I never let myself relax into those moments. And I'm always the guy at Edinburgh who checks in. How you doing, guys? How you doing? Oh, great to see you. Let's have a pint. I've got a gig. I've got to go and do another podcast. I've got to go and do a thing. And I just blast through everything. And I'm terribly afraid at the end of my life, I'll go, well, I got through that.
Yeah.
Rather bloody brilliant final last line, though. That was incredible.
Yeah.
Rather than actually stopping and spending time with people. So although the podcast does share intimate kind of moments after a fashion with people, and I get to know them a bit. There's always this funny thing where I'm like, some newer acts are sometimes, and I say newer now, within the last kind of 10 years now, are excited to be on it. And then they're on it. And afterwards, it's a bit like we've had sex then, and they're no longer into. They fucked me now, and they don't need to chat to me anymore. I'm like, I thought we'd built a thing, and okay, yeah, sure. It was just a podcast, wasn't it? No, sure.
Which guest were you most intimidated by before meeting?
Before
or walking into the room with them?
Well, before. It's really hard for me to remember who's been on it. Let me look at a list of all the guests. There
are times when we're sat opposite guests. I'm like, I can't believe they're sharing their time with us.
Loved when Alistair Campbell came on, and the first thing Joe said was like, "What's your fucking problem?" or something like that. So great.
I had my back up at that point.
It's often not. It's not the status of the guests so much as if we've had any kind of encounter beforehand. And I feel like normally, if you've met them and you're like, oh, like the best thing that can happen is I clock someone, like it's not a live, or like I'm meeting them face to face rather than on Zoom. And the best thing that can happen is if we gig together the other night, because then I'm not freaking out. The biggest thing that I've probably said this on the show. I fear that I'm going to get caught out not having done my homework. I feel like a guest is going to say to me, I feel like I'm going to say to someone, and have you ever thought about writing a movie? And they're going to say, I won a Nommy. I got nominated for an Emmy for writing a movie. You fucking idiot. Why don't you know about me?
Yeah, that would worry me.
I'm mortally afraid that's going to happen.
But then I'd think, well, there'd be a bit of an arsehole if they got the hump with you for not knowing.
They would, but when it's just me and them, I would crumple and be like,
you do it on your own, don't you? Fuck yeah, see,
yeah. I've already done it. It's like I remember thinking is I never bullied. I was never bullied at school, but I was so scared of being bullied that I sort of bullied myself. Do you know what I mean? I just kind of walked around in fear just in case.
Yeah, you went to Dartington, didn't you, with Naomi?
Yes, I did. Of course, yeah.
Were you?
Went to what?
Dartington. It's a wacky hippie art college up a hill, or used to be up a hill in Devon. Doesn't exist anymore.
Were you in the same? Were you a bit older?
Is that where the Crystal?
Yes, it's just up the road from where the Crystal. Devon, North Devon. Yeah. Or South Devon.
South Devon.
I remember South Devon. Yes, I went there. I graduated in 2000.
What is it? An art college?
It was an arts college. I did a course in devised theatre, so it was like it was as mad and head exploring as a course could be. There were people who were like, they'd cut open a dead rabbit and they'd pull out a poem from inside it, or they'd cast. What was her name? Emma. My friend Emma she made a cast of her vulva and then vacuum formed the cast and then used it as a mould to make chocolate puddings in it, and then laid it out in front of the examining board and said, "There we go, eat my pussy."
Did she pass?
Did she? She said that.
Because it's art, right? So like day one, they get you in and they basically go, "We're here to help you be an artist. There are no rules. You can do." I mean, they didn't really say this, but it became clear this was a plan. The idea was like, we don't know what's right and wrong. It's art. Fucking do anything and come up with a system for yourself to decide whether or not it's good enough.
Yeah.
Like, what is it like? Oh, God, they should have said this on day one. I think they've summed it up better than the 3-year course. It's like there's no rules. Only your opinion about your art counts. You can fit it. Have some sort of sense of inquiry and some sense of what the thing is. And all the people they showed us. We had a talk from this guy called Gustav Metzger, who was massive in the 60s, who did protest art. And his big thing that he got famous for was he painted pictures in acid, so they disintegrated within an hour. And he was a big protest guy. And he came in and gave a talk and he said, the main thing you've got to do is pencil drawing. You just have to learn to be doing brilliant pencil drawings. And of course, we're all a bunch of dancers and fucking circus dropouts on mushrooms. And we were like, we're not going to learn to draw. So that was Dartington. But I suppose in retrospect, it was useful because I am, between that and the kind of street performing background, I think I can talk to anyone about any level of art, no matter how elite or earthy it is.
That's something we should talk about, the street performing and how
yeah, we can if you like.
But I like how...
You can have 2 burning questions about street performing and I'm done.
I like it when you bring up street performing and then you've got to either you say the thing about the drinking game, if you're playing the ComCom drinking game, or or you're really down at yourself because you're talking about it again. And I go, oh, here we go. He's going to have a little pop at himself.
I loved it. I loved it, and I'm proud of it. I just worry that I bore people by talking about it. Well, because I've got the sort of fan base of the podcast who feel very happy to let me know that I'm boring and I'm talking.
Oh, really?
Well, it's not that they're aggressive. The relationship I have with my fans with a very small f is that, if you have got a mate and you introduce them to another mate, or like your brother, you've got your brother and you've got a mate and they've never met, and they get on and they start bullying you in a friendly, fun way. They start taking the piss out of you.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the relationship I have with certain elements of my fan base.
Because you've built up it's quite interesting the way you've done it. Because you've always done loads of interaction with your, what do you call it?
Yes.
You've got a name for them, haven't you? Have you got a name for your?
So. No, there was a few names, but they all sounded too much like the what the fuckericans kind of thing.
Yeah,
so like ComCom, Pedestrians, and ComCom Pod. We never came up with one. Really.
But you've always engaged with them quite a lot, haven't you? You've always sort of.
Oh yeah. And so I have, and I really enjoy that. I want everyone to be my friend, right? So I'm I'm really honest, and I'm forever saying things on the podcast that I forget I've said, and then people bring them up, and I'm like, oh, I've been quite honest over the years, haven't I? But I think it's the medium of podcasting. Back when I were a fledgling 10 years ago, it was so unusual and magical that your voice would go into one person's ear whilst they're doing something else.
You're really quite early, weren't you?
I always, yeah, exactly, yeah. I always refer to the listener, and I always say you.
Yeah.
And because I like that, I just get a bit of a buzz out of the fact that lots of people have a really intimate connection with it because the show isn't often funny. It's sort of thinky and what have you. I like that. And as a result, I've got like a small number of pretty sticky sticky people.
Do you know what, Stuart? I must thank you for making the podcast, because when I was gardening, I'd probably download 4 or 5, and yours was one of them.
Oh,
and it was the fact it existed. I was like, this is an absolute joy. And,
I still have that. I'll go and do a bit of
and you think of how many podcasts come and go, just sort of don't. But yours has stuck around. It's excellent.
Well, I'm beaming. Thank you.
What percentage? I wonder what percentage of comedians listen to it. I'd say it's in the 80s. 80%.
I mean, I was back in the Dan Evans day.
Was he episode 2?
Yeah. Rob Deering won.
Very good. Very good.
No, Deering
was first.
Antopolsky
was third.
I remember where I was.
Evans was second then.
Yeah. Dan Evans.
I was back in those days, son.
Yeah. I listen to those. I listen back to those, and I sometimes go, they don't know what they're part of yet. I don't know what Big Fry they are. They're just having a chat. They've got no idea this is going to be.
So why won't you come on it?
Me or David?
Can I ask you again? Could I either of you? You've got so much to look back on, so much to reflect on, and also crucially, you are now secure and successful in a way that maybe you were less so when I first.
I am not secure. I'll tell you that for nothing. It's the letting myself down thing. It's the letting myself down, and when I say letting myself down, coming away going, why did I open up?
Well, do you know when Matt Ewins did it? He had a piece of paper next to him with things written on it like "Don't say anyone's name." It was like rules.
Well, I can't quite tell the story, but someone gave me a bit of advice saying it was about this other thing, basically saying if you come away from that conversation and you've done that, you've lost. And it was made sense. And that sort of sticks. And they were right in that situation. I know yours is different, but I think that's how I'd feel. I'd go, fuck, if I open up.
Okay. I've got two counter offers. The first is
Cash.
You can have editorial control. You can decide what goes in it and what doesn't.
Bloody short that would be.
Happy with that? The second thing, and I've only offered this.
Hiding.
I've only offered this to one other person.
I don't know what I'm
two
hiding. That's the problem. Genuinely, and there's a fuck of a lot down there. That's what all I know. What's
the other thing is we can record it and I won't release it until you're dead.
So not released for 2 years. Shit. I can't.
I mean, that's more of a thought experiment than an offer. You may very well outlive me, but would that work?
Oh, God, honestly, why are we not talking at David? This is what's going through my head. I honestly don't. I'll tell you what I think. I, as I've said 100 times, I adore your podcast, but I just go, I cannot imagine having to answer that. Like sometimes, and I know I've said cornered and stuff, and it didn't like that, but you basically say to someone, no, like, and they are my favourite bits where you go, no, and you are always right. That's the thing.
What is the question, Joe? What is the question that would?
Oh yeah,
I can't remember them, but I meant like it will be, and I'm trying to be as honest as I can because I'm looking at Stuart Goldsmith, but I go, oh my God, he's absolutely right. That person, I want to know what that person's really thinking because I don't think they're being truthful. But they obviously don't want to say that because they don't want to open up. But there's like a lose-lose for them now. Because if they don't open up, I'm the listener going, Carol, mate, can open up. And if they open up, and it'd be me, I'd be going, what? No, don't say this. And that's what's going on in my head. And I want all that to be very, very much under lock and key.
And why is it that you want that? Why do you think?
That's like facing Mike
funny.
Tyson.
As a listener, you reacting to Stuart like that is so frustrating. And it is. It's like, oh, don't play that game, Joe. Either go on the podcast and open up, or don't go on the podcast.
All right, I'm not going to go on the podcast because I just don't want to open up.
Yeah.
Okay. Over to David.
Yeah.
Will you come on the podcast, please? You've got a fantastic movie, the BAFTA nomination. Congratulations to that. It's a wonderful piece of work. Yeah. And I can interview you just about the movie because I've got loads of questions about the movie. Right. But I also would love to talk
I want to know about everything else.
Well, that's it. I never go into it thinking I'm going to get into this person's private life. But I was crying with laughter when you did that Gittins show with the bear suit and the Dorothy Perkins bit. And I want to just get in your mind and go, what's that bit? And how's that? Like the bit in Brian and Charles where he goes,
this feels lovely, Stuart. I'll be honest with you.
That one moment in Brian and Charles where he goes, well, his spleen's working. And we just glimpse the magic with that lit up, that one little moment of like, boom, that's like a nod towards what must be going on inside Charles. I want to do that with you. And I've got to, come on. How did you get there? How did you dare? How are you brave enough to try that? Get from there to there before I can say Dorothy Perkins. And oh Christ, I was laughing. So why don't you come on it and we'll talk about your movie?
I tell you what, this is how I'm feeling right now. I feel a lot more comfortable about the idea of coming on than I would have 10 years ago. I worry, what am I worrying about? That it's just the same old crap you must hear all the time from people. I'm not interesting enough. I haven't got enough insight.
Most people don't tell me the reasons why they don't want to come on. So this is fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah, people either say yes or they decline and they fudge it another reason.
We've spoken about this, Stuart, and I don't know if it'll go in. You want it in, but there's types of answers you get, or types of people that some people want to come on, some people don't want to come on. You said there was like definite sort of brackets of people, wasn't there? You know what I mean? When you asked them, or
yes, I suppose, yeah.
I remember we spoke about it years ago. There's like, because I remember you going, I fall in the bracket of no way, and then there's people that really want to come on. I can't remember what you said, but it was like...
I'm not sure. Yeah, some people want to come on because it's just something they've heard of. And some people want to come on because they want to submit to the process and see what comes out. And some people come on and they've already written all their answers in their head, because they think they know themselves. And that's really...
Those are the best ones, right? Because those prepared answers aren't truthful.
True.
And you're going, no.
Yeah.
I'm also asking myself, why do you want to go on, David? Like,
this could be a fucking big spiral suddenly.
No, this is like what you want to show off again.
This is why we feel this. Right.
Stop showing off. Stay at home.
But you can stay at home. We can do it remote. At the end of this call, Joe could jump off and we'll just do one straight away.
Oh, yes. Put it out this afternoon as well.
This is like, right, why? Well, it's nice to be asked, isn't it? It's like, oh, hello.
I have to admit, when you
come on, my lowly little thing. I mean, it must be nice to be asked. It must be nice to be asked. But surely know. No,
I'm not being the genuine. It's nice to be asked. It's nice to be asked. How's your morning by the milkman? Literally anything's nice. Not that he does, but
You can but dream.
yeah. I'm just trying to work out what am I thinking. I was like, why do you want to go? Why do I want to? What is that part of me that wants
I
to
think
actually...
talking about how you do it feels a bit embarrassing. But
also, it's a conversation that you don't often necessarily get to have. Like you can talk about, like it's a kind of, you know, the way if you ever have therapy, it's basically the relationship there is the therapist goes, feel free now to talk about stuff without being judged at all, probably for the first time in your life. And I think in a lesser but parallel kind of way, I think my podcast is an opportunity to go, feel free to be as pretentious as you want to be, talking about the thing to which you've devoted your life.
Yeah.
Like, let's have a big conversation about your influences and your development and what you got and what you expected to get and didn't and how you cope with that.
Yeah. Do you know what? There's a bit of me that goes, stop taking yourself so seriously, David. Just go on the podcast and talk. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but
who cares?
In that moment,
Joe, he's going to go for it. Don't fuck this up.
Who cares?
But I know what will happen.
Stop taking
for
yourself
both
so
of
seriously,
us.
Joe, and just go on the podcast.
But both of us will have a moment. If you caught us at a moment for whatever reason, we'd have that moment. We go, just stop taking yourself and go on Stuart podcast. Go on Stuart Cosmos podcast. Then a couple of days later, be like, what on earth have I just agreed to? Because I'm in a different frame of mind.
It's not like that because
that's what I feel. That's my truth.
You have heard loads of the shows and you're remembering the bits where people were most vulnerable and thinking, that'll be what my one's like.
Yeah, and
but it won't necessarily. There are plenty of ones where people aren't particularly vulnerable. They just have an interesting conversation about. They're just honest. And you guys are both great at being honest.
Oh, no, but I'm just, I'll be like, I'm trapped, mummy.
Interpret this. I was so anxious about coming on this show, but I was excited. I'm very excited about it. You know, it's lovely to go on a thing that you love. And I haven't seen you guys for ages. I haven't had a proper conversation with you for ages because that's another mad thing about comedy is when you're going through certain phases of it, you think it is always like this. You don't think, oh God, this is it happening now. I better kind of collect it all. So comedy, my comedy experience is just full of seeing people, being friendly with people and going, oh, we're getting on. And then the circuit revolves and you go, I haven't seen him for 3 years. And life's different,
It's so true. I remember thinking probably first 5 years, I probably saw you once a fortnight. Probably, or once a month minimum.
Yeah.
It's so weird. And you just go, oh, that's the way that is. Yeah. And then that's
Isn't it nuts we're still doing it?
Yeah.
Why would it be nuts?
I just think of the people that sort of not fell by the wayside, but they just decided not to, or for whatever
and
reason.
You don't, and we've always spoken about it, you don't actually you never see them leave. They just stop.
No.
Because
when they die, you just hear that they're dead now.
I wasn't going to go down that route, Stu, but your choice.
I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with death.
Same here, Stuart. I'll come on and talk about death till the cows come home.
Every time I see a photo of myself, every time my wife takes a picture of me and the kids, my first thought is, I imagine in the future them looking back at that picture after I'm dead, and I assess the picture from whether or not I think it sums up who I actually am, and whether they'll remember like a real version of me.
Do you know what I think, Stuart? Laying on my deathbed, final breaths, maybe a couple of days to go. Not even a couple of days to go. I'm talking 2 minutes to go, but you're just about conscious. And your children have stood around you. They're about 30 odd. And you're going, I've got to say goodbye now. And that must be painful.
I think there's a way. I think there's a way round that.
I don't know.
Oh, help me.
I think my wife has an incredible attitude to death. Her dad died maybe 10 years ago or so, and she dealt with it the best I've ever seen a human being deal with the death of a parent. She has, and partly informed by that, I'm sure, we have always brought up our kids to understand that death is a thing. And the way my son would talk about it when he would watch have you seen Kung Fu Panda? The great, underappreciated franchise. Those 3 movies are incredible. They're incredible. And in the first one, Master Oogway, who's the old venerable turtle that is the kind of source of kung fu in the story, he dies, and the way he dies is he sort of disappears and he turns into petals of this tree, and then the petals blow up into the night sky and turn into stars. So my son, he kind of had this idea of sooner or later you turn into stars. So that way of thinking about death, which is that there was a time before we were alive and we were fine then. You know what I mean? Like we didn't think about it because we were just dust, and we'll be dust again, and we won't think about it. Like you
I
won't
can't get over that goodbye.
But I think if you prepare your children for the idea that every moment
care about what they're going through.
Well, you won't care about you dying because you'll be dead.
You'll be too busy trying to pull the arrow out.
You'll be too busy looking at which one of them poisoned you. I know what you mean, and it feels unbearably sad. But given that it is inevitable, I think there is a real power or authority over it by accepting it. I think. And then, sorry, the end of that concept about the Kung Fu Panda thing is that years later we were talking about his great granny Omar. She's Dutch. And his great granny died, and he said, "His great granny is not around anymore, is she? Omar's not around." And he said, "No, he said she died." And we said, "Yes, that's right. She turned into stars." And he said, "Yes," and then died. And we thought, okay,
yeah.
God.
Oh, we've made David sad.
No, I'm genuine. I'm like this all the time, Stuart. Behind me.
Try doing a podcast.
This is what your episode with me would be like. We'd just be looking at each other.
That's okay.
I think Stuart will be fine.
I think part of him will be going, fucking hell, come on, Dave, give me something, son.
David, do you make so much stuff because you're scared of death? Do you make stuff as legacy? Do you create
I
things?
definitely need to leave my mark, like scrawl my name on the wall, yeah.
I totally understand that. I feel like I don't. Like that doesn't occur to me because I think the people who can see that mark will then die, and everyone they know will die. And so I just think that thing, the idea of legacy only lasts a couple of 100 years. Even if you're Alexander the Great, it only lasts a few thousand.
It's partly that, and it's definitely parents. It's definitely that. It's definitely
us being parents.
No, my parents.
You being
it's definitely
your parents.
Hello. Yeah. It's definitely that.
What do you mean?
What do you mean by? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, as in, like my son bringing me a picture of something he's drawn at school. It's that.
Oh, you want to do the same to your parents?
I think so.
Your parents are both alive, and you want to say, "Look, I've made a movie."
Yeah, I lost my dad this year, and I've realised, what's the point of doing anything if I can't? Yeah. There's partly that. Yeah.
Sorry, I giggled.
Oh, he giggled at me losing my dad.
No, because it went quiet, and you know what I'm like in silence.
Do you know what I nearly said when it was quiet just before you giggled? I nearly said "Bing Bong" in the voice of Charles Petrescu because I was showing them the clips from the movie this morning, and it's just so gentle. His voice is so gentle. It's so perfect. And I remember Charles from the Brian Gittins and Friends podcast, and your merciless bullying David Edwards.
Well, we did it at Mac, I think.
I've ever heard. I just remember listening to the podcast and just loving hearing you bully David Edwards. 5 more. Me and my wife do that to each other. If I say something funny, she's like, "Do 3 more. Come on."
Stop pointing. He's a genius, and it sort of annoys me that people don't know him.
Yeah.
Anyway, have you got your parents, Stuart?
What's that?
You got both parents?
Yes, I've got both parents. My dad lives in Spain, and we get on with each other really, really well. And we only ring each other if we need something. So and it fosters a really good relationship because I'll just text him a picture of a DIY thing I've just fucked up, or I'll just text him and go, "Right, I've got this problem. What do I need to do with this?" And he'll give me a really solid answer, and then it'll end up being a chat. Yeah. And my mum is in the Midlands, and she is. I think I can't really say anything about her because I don't think she likes to be talked about on things. No. But I love her very much.
She's a big chatter biscuit.
She's a huge chatter biscuit.
She's a gold member.
She's got the T-shirt. She's got the one T-shirt.
She's on tomorrow.
Made
talk about this set. We're going to analyse this set with her.
She. What I will say is she catastrophizes. I think she would admit that, and I take off. Well, I think so, maybe. But I take after my dad's practicality and roll up your sleeves and do the thing and slog. And I also take after my mum's kind of oh God, it's all such a bloody mess, kind of. I have both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've never lost any of them. And I have for all of my sort of airy fairy thoughts about death and turning into petals and stars, I've been so lucky. I've lost my granny, and I haven't lost many other people very close to me.
Mm.
But I certainly remember when we were mid-pandemic, when Sean Locke died, and even when like Rick Mail died years earlier, and there's that kind of, you think of the legacy people have, and what happens is the person dies, the fan base and people who know them and knew them and what have you
die.
They get on Facebook and they make they celebrate that person, and it's like a wake on social media. And I really loved and appreciated that. I don't like social media, but I'm very addicted to various forms of it. But that the wake of someone's death and everyone sharing stories, and even now you'll get those lovely things that go around like, this is what Rick Mail wrote in my birthday card 20 years ago. He's like, you fucking prick, and he's crossed out, I love you.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, that legacy, I think is absolutely brilliant. But then that passes, and then the people who actually knew them, they've got the real kind of, when Cogs died, Cogs' his father, I really felt that because I knew him. But his family kind of like, they almost have to put up with everyone feeling like they know the person.
Right, yeah.
Whereas really they know the person. It's just that everyone else knows the output and the public face of the person.
When do you think will be the last time your name is mentioned or uttered?
I couldn't care less. I don't care.
I'm just interested how long it takes before it vanishes.
Well, the podcast will give me a certain amount of longevity.
You're gone.
No, that's what I mean.
At what point? Who says your name? Your great grandchildren? Your great great grandchildren? Who's the last person to?
Oh well, I think we've got 200 years left tops.
200.
Yeah. I think humanity's extinct in 200 years probably.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Did you know also that I met an undertaker and he said you only get gravestones for 40 years?
What?
Do you?
Explain what you mean. They take them away, aren't they? I live near a graveyard and there's way older than gravestones.
The old ones are there now because you don't want that's how the graveyard looks. They're almost for show.
Yeah.
But when you get your grave, you get it for 40 years because that's how long they reckon that no one's going to be looking at you, coming to visit you after 40 years. So then they get dug out again and someone else gets popped in there. Get your head around that.
This is called the Stuart Goldsmith effect.
This has taken I've never cried this much in a podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I shut down your comic premise, Dave, about when's the last or your.
No, it's not. I was just chatting to someone about it, and I
premise.
thought it's probably about maybe 120 years.
Show
120
off.
years
You reckon
after your death.
120
But
years?
my point is,
Well, I've mentioned my great grandparents.
Oh, I thought you meant like, oh yeah.
But my great great great, don't know who they are.
yeah. But that's how it's. I think that's how it's supposed to be, isn't it? It's like that thing of like a bird flies through the darkness and it flies through the window of like a Viking, a kind of carousing hall, and the bird flies in from absolute blackness to constant light and chaos and noise, and it flies out the window at the other end.
I like that.
I think you do a lot of these in your podcast, and I immediately feel thick. Because you say something like that, and I'll go through the whole of my life and never say anything as elegant as that.
Oh, I didn't come up with that. But
but you learnt it.
I think every time I mention a thing like that, I probably couch it in, it's like that thing, because I'm terrified that someone, if I say, like, I think what it is I'm scared that other people know way more about it and will think that I'm kind of patronising or being up myself or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. You
mentioning the Rick Mail birthday card thing, I have definitely, if I've had to sign something for like an autograph for a Derek or something, I've definitely thought, let's be a little bit quirky here in case when I die.
In the hope that this will one day do the rounds.
I've imagined doing a book signing, right? And thought, how often would I change what I say in it? I think, so someone you're doing a book signing and I go, I think of something, like I like your T-shirt, Joe, or whatever. Yeah. And then how many of those are
Sounds
different?
Exhausting.
Yeah. That would be exhausting. That would be crazy.
But I want to do enough that the people, if they've come together, they all get different ones. Is that weird?
When I was 16, I was at Edinburgh. I was in the Pleasance Courtyard, and I was 16 years old, and I saw Tim Vine talking to Harry Hill. And I was all excited and starstruck. And I went up and I met Harry Hill, and I did a giddy sort of teenager thing. And he wrote me an autograph. I still got it somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I'd never thrown it away. He wrote an autograph saying, "Dear Stu, glad to finally meet you, Harry Hill." And I was just, something about that altered my personality. I was like, oh, I understand what class is now. You know what I mean? It was what a gift. What a funny gift, you know?
Stuart, which comedians have you not had on who you're desperate to have a chat with?
Desperate to have Harry Hill. Harry Hill wrote me such a lovely email declining. I'm desperate to have Harry Hill. I've broken a rule there. I don't normally tell people who's declined because I sort of don't think it's polite. But there are people I would love to have had Sean Locke on. I think Sean Locke's comedy mind was. Well, the Sean Locke bit I think of is the surf, turf, burrow, and orchard. Have you heard that? It's like it was. I don't know. It's a punchline to a bit. You know what you don't, or you know, carrot in a box, or his bit when he's talking about. There's a particular bit of his. I mean, everything in 15 Stories High. There's a particular stand-up bit of his when he's talking about. So I'm sat there trying to put keys on a fob. And suddenly the doorbell rings, and I'm like, "What am I? A fucking octopus?" And things like that. He's someone whose comic imagination really penetrated into mine. So I would love to have had Sean Locke on.
Same, but Harry Hill for me. I was just like, don't know.
I'd love to get Harry on, but he just doesn't want to talk about it. I met Harry Enfield. I did a gig with Harry Enfield and said, "Oh, yeah, I'd love you to do this podcast." He went, "Oh, I'll never do that. I don't like talking about it." And it was certainly cheery, and lovely. And I went, "Yeah, fair enough." I've done so many people now. That a lot of, I mean, the Venn diagram for who I can ask next has to be enough of a body of work upon which to reflect, right? So not super new. There's lots of new people want to be on it. You've got to wait because they'll be better later.
So how long? How many years?
Like the rule of thumb is 3 hours. If they've done 3 hours of stand-up.
Like 3 shows?
3 shows. Then they've got a bit, minimum sort of, but the longer the better. So that's one of them. They have to be up for it. Yeah. So there are a number of kind of rules of thumb as to who could be on it. But I've asked so many people. I've had so many people on it. There are some brilliant Americans I'd love to get on it. But when I started, being invited on a podcast was quite an unusual, quirky thing. And now it's if an American lands, and I'd love to get Mike Birbiglia on the show. I've met him, we've talked about it. But as soon as the notices go up of Birbigs is coming to London, I imagine him and his management get 50 podcasters in London going, "Can you come on my show?"
So there was a time it was much easier. Yeah, you were quite unique,
and I'm niche, right? I don't have a Chatterbox style following. I've never knocked Rest is Politics off the top thing. I used to be in the top 50, and now I'm sort of in the top. Every so often, I'll do the top 100 for comedy, maybe, and I'll bob in and out of it or something like that, But now, to get people on, basically the offer is, here is a really reasoned and intelligent and hopefully perceptive conversation that you'll come out of thinking, "God, that was a good one." But it's not the same as come and be on my show and you'll shift 50 books or 5,000 books or whatever. I don't like, so it's, the value that I'm offering.
You need fans
different.
to come on, don't you, really? Like that helps. If someone's a fan of the show.
Or if the fan of the show is the PR person and they're saying, "You'd love this one. Right. This one's different." But what I can't do is go, "Hey, come on this because I've got a bajillion followers and you're going to be downloaded all over the place."
You should do. Should have bajillion followers. I love it.
Let's hear you cough, boy. doing my thing in the middle of a Chatterbix episode. Yeah. Oh, going to talk, doing my thing on the toilet, doing my thing in the middle of a Chatterbix episode. Yeah, relax. Episode. Yeah, let's hear you cough, boy. Let's hear you cough, boy. Let's hear you cough, boy. Nice.
My favourite interviews are yours. How do I word this without? Stand-up comedians who are on the circuit who either are frustrated with being on the circuit or are happy with their lot on the circuit, but the fact that they just exist, no podcast, no TV, no radio, they just do it round. I'm fascinated by that world.
Yeah. There are absolutely.
Who can headline a club and do really well, and yeah.
And either didn't have the ambition, or the ambition was to be happy. Yeah. And I always think, do you remember Matt Welcome?
Yes.
Yeah.
He stopped doing it, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. He wrote a book about time not existing, I think, and then I think he stopped.
Was he an illustrator as well or something? Am I making that up?
Welcome. I'm not sure. But one of his, I think of this all the time. He had a bit of material about sitting and all he wanted to do was sit and have a fag and watch Columbo and have a cup of coffee. And because that's all he wanted to do, he realised that he'd never amount to anything more. But if he did become very successful, all he would want to do is sit and have a fag and a cup of coffee and watch Columbo. And the punchline was, he said, and I can't work out whether I'm a winner or a loser. Yeah. And I just thought that is magnificent because there are people who are just like, they're not driven by... Everyone's driven by something different. And a lot of the most successful people are driven by something. They're running away from something or they're running towards something. They need to prove something. Yeah. And they're not the happiest people. We know successful people and we know happy people, and they're not always the same. So there are people who's, like we said, there's loads and loads of brackets, loads of different drives. And I think every one of them is as valid as the next.
I think it's the comedians on the circuit who are frustrated that they're still going round, and it just feels like luck. Yeah. Like you said, Joe, when you did Him and Her, you just so happened to get a part on a sitcom that was written by a brilliant writer. Yeah.
I was so jealous. I auditioned for a role, not the same role, obviously. Ooh. I auditioned for a role on Him and Her.
What role?
It was just a one-off. It was a one-off. It was like a guest,
like a one-ep thing, right? Yeah.
Like a one-ep thing, yeah. And I had been an actor previously, but I couldn't cope with the... I'm always saying, I was a capable actor. I think it was all right. I had a big problem memorising lines. Huge problem with my memory. So, oh my God. And I didn't realise that everyone did. So I thought I was uniquely bad at it. And so in auditions, I would always be stressed and I never gave my best gig in an audition ever. And I got very few roles. But I remember being so jealous when you got Him and Her because it did feel like one of those kind of, that's one, you're off. You're off now.
Well, I had no idea. But it was not sold to me like that, if I'm honest. It was like but I mean, in my head, it was.
Do you think it was only a matter of time, Stuart, that Joe would have found her?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, yes, except that, as you said, we all know really good, interesting imaginations, comics who are really funny, for whom it hasn't yet happened. And of course, there's an element of luck. And I think the element of luck that goes into it, but it really annoys me when people say comedy's a meritocracy. It feels like comedy's a meritocracy. There's loads of political things that go into that, privileged backgrounds, class, all race, all of those sorts of things. But then there's not just luck as a sort of random, we don't just get up every day and roll a dice, but the element of luck, which is that if you did well early doors, then you got help early doors and you got perspectives and insights and a manager who was the right person for you. And if you got I've got a fantastic agent now, but if I had them on day one, I would have, and we're all in our 40s. We know how much the industry prizes youth, how special and how blazing you are, and how exciting it is when someone new and young comes along. Yeah. That I think if you go off at a different time, or it takes you longer to learn a particular thing, or you piss off the wrong person, or some of the Phil Ellis, Phil Ellis' stories about pissing off the wrong people, people who without doubt should be up there, who aren't, not to take away from anyone's achievements from anyone who is up there, that everyone worked hard for it. No one lucked into it, but people were lucky enough to be able to give of their best at the right time and place, and other people have still not yet been able to give of their best in the right time and place. So it's
totally
chaos. It's chaos out there.
Absolutely.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
It's
Chaos out there, and at the end you have to say goodbye to your kids.
Yeah. God, that's the place to end, isn't it?
Yeah, that's yeah. Can you come on for the last 2 minutes of all our reps?
Just snip that.
Because we never had to end.
I'm enjoying myself so much that when I heard myself say that, I thought, don't wrap up, Stu, don't finish. Don't wrap up.
Shot yourself in the foot there,
I
Stu.
was worried. I was worried
Oh,
you
dear.
were thinking that I was, yeah.
It's been fascinating. There's loads more I'm going to go and ask you. But it's, I'm still going to. One thing
I've
I
got a
do
question.
get frustrated.
Go on. No, go on.
The best comedian. All right, what's my question? Comedians from the past that you remember who retired, the best ones are those.
Connolly and Lee Evans.
Who?
Billy Connolly and Lee Evans.
Yeah. Good
What about
call.
on the circuits of our generation?
Oh,
our generation who retired.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Lee. I always thought Lee was brilliant, and what I loved was that
Lee Bannard.
Yeah.
Lee Bannard looked at comedy and kind of went, "Oh, this is fine, but I don't want to be on the road. I prefer my job."
Yeah.
And you sort of go, well done.
well played. Yeah. We had Terry Saunders on for that very reason.
Yeah, Terry Saunders we had on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was he a surprise guest for you?
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was, wasn't he? Yeah. And
Terry, nice guy, Terry. Also, John Nichols.
John Nichols, Dave Nichols.
Dave Nichols,
John Gordon.
Right.
Yeah, he
So
was the real
what's
deal.
remind me of his real name?
Dave
'Cause
Nichols.
one of them's his
Real name John Gordon.
It's so funny. Real name John Gordon.
We got to get him on, Joe. You always mention him.
Oh, he's so funny. He's
Yeah.
so funny. Such a lovely bloke. I see him and Lee every so often at Edinburgh. I've not for a while.
Yeah,
we
they're
do
mates, aren't they?
pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
but they both come up and we go and see a show and have a pint together. But he's a
was
real
amazing.
name John Gordon,
John Gordon, and
and on his
Dave's
first
name
gig,
is Dave.
his stage name was Dave Nichols, which was a person he knew.
Yeah, it's his
from
best
work.
mate. It's his best mate.
Mate,
He took his best mate's name, and then we met. Then about 4 years into knowing him, he went, this bloke turned up at the pub, and he went, this is actually Dave Nichols. And we were like, what? He goes, my name's John. And we were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, this is the real Dave Nichols. And so the other guy's known as the real Dave Nichols. And, and we were like, what did you do? He goes, I don't know. And then we just had a pint.
Lovely.
Is there anyone else you can think of?
Rohan Agalawata. I haven't seen Rohan's name anywhere. He was a one-liner comic. One-liner comic. This is his joke. I mean, this is his most famous joke. Sort of, in a green room, people share this one. A unicorn and a cyclops. That's an accident waiting to happen.
Oh, I know that.
yeah.
Yeah, you know the joke, right? That's Rohan
Yeah.
Agalawata. And I mean, he was on the open mic circuit in London in the early to mid 2000s. So I remember him.
But,
Tom Wallamies.
Oh, Tommy Wallamies still does it in Finland.
Tommy Valamiers, I believe. He
still
was a
does it?
professional. Does he?
I think, well,
He was Finnish, professional poker player.
I follow him on Twitter, and he tweets in Icelandic, so I've got a clue what he says.
Is he Icelandic? I thought he was Finnish.
Finnish,
Or he might be
sorry.
Finnish. I think. Do you remember his joke? He used to go, so my, I've got to do that. I've got to do the rhythm of it. My grandfather is living the dream. Yeah. He's in a coma. Great.
Yeah.
My lasting memory of Tommy Wallamies is, do you remember we did the Hackney final with him?
Yes.
Do you remember the Hackney Empire?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And I was sat
You were
with
both in
Diane.
the same final.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you won that, didn't you?
I won, Diane second, you were third.
I came third. Yeah.
How were
yeah,
you
yeah.
when you said I won just then, Joe?
Well, because I knew you'd bring this up, so that wasn't my point.
This is my
Fucking
favourite bit
hell.
of Chattermix is when you
Fucking-
prod, you do a David Earl, what's it? You do your prodding, David,
Yeah.
to Joe, and
It's
you
just
go,
I saw his
how do you
face
feel
just
then?
go
No,
tight.
you didn't, Seamus.
I
What you
won. And
No, because I'm
yeah,
7 steps
absolutely.
ahead, because I'm going, oh, here we go. David's going to somehow go something about me. Anyway, fucking.
That's the best bit. It's the best bit. I saw it as well,
I'm
Dave. I saw Joe go, he's not going to enjoy saying that he won something, is he?
oh, please go on, Conk, Joe.
And if you can sit next to me telling Stuart what I'm actually thinking.
Why don't you both Why don't you both come on to make the other one go on? Why don't you have a pact?
I don't think there's any way of getting me on, if I'm honest.
Oh, fair enough.
Oh, and then we can go on Chatterbix and listen back to each other's.
I don't want to play. It does feel like
I'll
a thing.
download the Chatterbix file and I'll delete each of you from one version of it, and I'll just splice it together.
Like a 7-minute ComCom pod.
Oh. Here's another one, Stuart. It's a super little question. A comedian who is yet to be known, he should be known.
I got one.
Because they
do you mean someone that's been going for a while? Because I'm not. I'm far less in touch now with the very early kind of bits of the circuit as I want to be.
Someone who's like you cannot believe
20 years in and they still haven't been that kind of thing.
Oh man! Well, I mean, this isn't answering the question, but I do remember when I started, Mickey Flanagan was floating around the top of the circuit.
Yeah, he was for years,
and everyone was like, "Why isn't Mickey massive?"
Right.
And I was quite good friends with him, and I've gone for partners with friends, what have you. As it was all going off, that was a really fascinating thing to accompany Mickey through a couple of different parties or nights out as gradually he became incredibly famous.
Yeah.
So
I went to see his Edinburgh show in the 50-seater. I think that was the year.
Yeah.
I think the next year it happened. Yeah. So who hasn't made it though, Stuart? You?
That's difficult. Who should have made it?
Do you still gig a lot as well? Are you still seeing a lot of people?
I don't. I'm not in green rooms as much as I want to be, just because it's crucially I'm on stage exactly as much as I want to be, but I'm not in the green rooms. I like the hangout. I like the community. And the pandemic made me realise how much I was missing of my kids' lives, and now I bitterly resent leaving the house. Yeah. I do gig. I'm gigging tonight in Barnstaple. I mean, you're in Exeter. Are you in Exeter, Dave?
Near Exeter. Yeah, Barnstable's north, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But so I'm in Bristol, and I don't know how much you get out on the road anymore, but the fucking motorways around here, like if you got a gig in Dorset and it's 30 miles away, but it's going to take you 2 hours or so, it's really frustrating. I get very frustrated with that. So I don't gig as.
Sorry, Stuart, you say you're living in Bristol?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah.
We should hang out in Taunton.
We're about an hour away.
We've done this in person.
We should hang out and hug.
Yeah, that would have been good. I could have done a tap at you with.
Oh, that would have been good. But that's how we should have done it. You might want to turn around now, David. Stuart sitting with a list of questions.
2 carving knives on your desk.
Yeah.
But then, Wozniak is near you as well, I believe, and Parry is in Exeter as well. There's some good people. Attention, other cool and funny comics. Come and move to the southwest.
Yeah,
come and hang out with me.
lineup, that. Super.
That's a lovely lineup.
Spencer
Jones, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. So what was the question? Other people who should be massive but aren't.
Yeah.
God, I'm going to think as well. I'll tell you one.
So here's a comedian who really makes me laugh, who's well known, but he really makes me laugh in the club. Is Hal Cruttenden.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's well known.
But he's done the Royal Variety.
Has he?
Known.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think the same about Paul McCaffrey.
Paul
McCaffrey.
That's a bit like, when the fuck is the world going to notice how great Paul McCaffrey? That's a really good point.
I did a gig with him last night, and I was watching him going, fuck, he does that kind of comedy that I always think it sounds disrespectful, and I really don't mean it, because we've talked about it, David, how it's straight comedy, like it's not quirky. It's really well observed sort of observations, which I think is the hardest thing to do. And he was so funny last night. And I was like, that's hard to do, where you're not doing anything wacky or odd. Yeah. You're just going, I think this is funny. And it's really mainstream that always sounds shit, doesn't it? Like you say, mainstream.
Yes, sure. And if you say accessible, it sounds shit as well. But it is. He's really plowing that furrow, isn't he? Yeah.
And it's fucking funny.
I love the person I always go and see. When I was a teenager going to Edinburgh, I'd always go and see Munnery. I'd go and see Simon Munnery three times a year, sort of thing. 3 times a festival. And now the person I see every single time, often more than once, is Matt Ewins. I take everyone to see Matt Ewins. And we all now, there's enough of my mates up there, street performers and all sorts who's like, we always go to you. Isn't he? He's got a great brain. He's just started doing stuff online and putting stuff online, which of course he should, because he's a genuine technical expert with all the kind of video
stuff. He's one of those comedians where I go, I don't know how you came up with that. I don't understand.
Yeah.
He puts a lot of work into his stuff. I always think, when he puts a lot of work into stuff and you go, fuck, I hope that works. Yeah. Because you put all that graft into making some prop that mechanically does something mad or whatever, and then you're like, fuck, that was funny.
Yeah.
Otherwise-
His stuff, he'll create a computer game for the sake of one payoff. Like he'll write and create. I mean, that's
mad. Come on, I want you to think of. I want a couple of examples of who should.
I want like a circuit hero who you think, why aren't they massive? Well, there's
Zoe Lyons.
Zoe Lyons. She's
Zoe
doing,
is making it, isn't she?
Is she? I don't know.
Ninia Benjamin. I always want
Who?
Ninia Benjamin.
Oh, yes.
You know Ninia.
Her
Ninia
Compom
Benjamin.
Pod's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. I think so.
It's
She was so humble, so like, God, you don't want me on it. I'm a piece of shit. She is a fucking force
She
of
didn't
nature.
realise her uniqueness was her power.
Yeah.
Like she was going on about how she goes, oh, I don't do what everyone else does, which is frustrating. You're like, well, that's why you're good.
I know. That's
And it was
she is that to me, and that's where I kind of think to myself, oh, she'd be great on the podcast, and then 10 minutes in, I'm thinking this is absolutely classic Pod, because
well, it was a
that is someone who
standout
is-
one. It was a standout one.
Great. She is so brilliant, but the disparity between how brilliant she is and her valuing of it or understanding of the value of it. Every other sentence she's like, well, I'm not proper and I'm not a real
she said
comic.
she kept saying I'm not really a comedian or something, didn't she?
Yeah.
And you were like, what are you on about?
Totally. And if anyone said that who was less than as incredibly good as she is and as kind of roof-raisingly good as she is, you'd be like, oh, this is some eggy territory.
I remember thinking what she does is insane, though, because she sort of says, I'm just going to bring an energy. And she does it every time because the way she is. But you just go, I've got to rely on my energy to make 200 people laugh. And it always works. But you go, what do you mean? I've got to rely on my energy will make these people laugh. She doesn't have anything in her.
She just goes in with the right. She just has to get the frame of mind exactly right, and then walk on and just say whatever the fuck she wants.
Oh no, really?
Destroy.
No material.
I mean, she'll have bits. She'll generate bits and bobs and stuff. But she just walks on and is just like blah.
And then I remember watching her, like now after listening to your podcast, going, oh yeah, she didn't, did she? Because you weren't sort of going, you haven't got anything. It was just like she's about to get going for 20 minutes, then she leaves. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's fucking bonkers. But she didn't have a clue. That's a good call. But she also has had like loads of stuff happen, hasn't she?
Oh yeah, she's done really well. She's done loads of shows. She did what's it, 3 Non-Blondes? She's so good, and I just want to grab her and just
that was good.
Fucking believe in yourself. Just so good.
I know. Yeah.
I just want to mention a couple of ones that have stuck in my head. I tell you, the two I really loved was Adam Bloom, and Stephen Grant, because they both just the way
episodes.
Two different.
I remember Adam Bloom. That was years ago. That one.
Yeah, that was a long 10 years ago.
And they were both good because the way they looked at comedy was really interesting. Like mechanical is the wrong word, but they'd working it out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
Adam was saying that he wanted to. Like, he doesn't like using any joke formats
because he knows them all, so he wants to.
Because he knows them all.
Yeah.
So I mean, he did that, but we talked about it on the episode. I remember seeing him on Nevermind the Buzzcocks, where he told the joke, which had loads and loads of swearing, loads of swear words in the punchline. And he said, and the joke's on you, because at the end of the joke, he said, and the joke's on you, because if you bleep them all out, it's Morse code for cunt. Do you remember that? Oh my God. I remember that's incredible.
Oh
and he worked out the Morse code for the C word and he put jokes, like he built a punchline out of the right length of jokes.
Yeah. Amazing.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say cunt on Chatterbox, I apologise.
Big time.
Well, it has been said.
We love it, don't we, Joe?
We have said it, but my mum and dad listened to this around the kitchen table.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Wilkinson, I am sorry. But I hope you can appreciate, we were talking there about the amoral components of language.
Yeah. Do you hear that, Dad? Get your head around that.
Sorry, Mr. Wilkinson.
Stuart, thank you for coming on. We've done an hour and a half. This is one of the longest pods we've ever done, Stuart.
Have me back. I love it. I love it. It's so nice to see you. If you won't come on mine, I'll keep returning to yours at any time, and I will eventually have enough to have created a
okay, fair. Deal.
I'll go on yours if Joe goes on yours. There you go.
Now, time for a break now. All right, let's discuss this on another pod.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we'll
guys,
discuss
thank you.
coming on your pod for a pod.
Can I? Do people plug something, or is that?
Oh,
all?
go
No,
plug,
I
plug
think
away.
Is that all right?
Plug, we'll cut it out anyway.
I've got to. If you could inform your
Blah,
listeners
blah,
in whatever
blah,
way.
blah, 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 blah. No, go on.
I think you'll quite like how this happened, because I've got a special. I taped a special, £800 gorilla, invested some money in it, properly produced. It's not a DIY project for the first time in my life. It's a proper thing, and it's being released on a platform called Moment, which is like it's on the 23rd of February at 8:00. And if you buy a ticket, you can watch it for a couple of weeks afterwards. But it's that moment. That's the moment.
Like a release.
So everyone, like a release.
Yeah.
And there's a Q&A and an after party, what have you, which I guess is being in a Zoom room. Feel free to come along. I'll comp you for that.
Yeah.
Come along to that, because it might be very lonely. It'll just be this.
Yeah.
But the point is, I did this big, they gave me a social media rollout plan. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And I'm desperate to please and to do my best and to do everything I can to really honour the fact that these people are taking a chance on me and shot a proper thing. And I did this big social media rollout, spent hours over it, ticking all the boxes. And then after my mailing list and my socials and everything, the volume of replies I got going, where is it in London? Where is it? What is it? Is it a DVD? I can't, because I didn't find a way, and I still haven't really found a way in 6 words to explain what the fucking thing is. Is it streaming?
Go on.
Yes, it's streaming, but it's not live streamed. It's like a DVD, but we don't. It's like a it's a moment.
When you first said it, it made sense to me straight away.
Well, I think I've had 2 weeks of trying to work out how to say it.
What's the link?
Oh, you could, if they go to stuartgoldsmith.com, there's a link there. That's the easiest thing.
And if you haven't got it, it's Comedian Podcast.
Yeah, go to
Comedian
find that
Podcast,
and enjoy it.
yes.
And I've forgotten the one thing I want to ask, but the book, how's the book going?
It's a big job of work. I'm writing a book about comedians' minds based on the podcast, and there is 600 hours worth of podcast out there. And the job just to decide which bits to refer to and get a quote, and then you've got to transcribe it, and are you going to use it? You don't know yet, and it's a colossal project. It's going to take me
I
at
ran
least the
through
rest
a
of the
puddle in Swindon, and I had an idea. I was going to text you something you should put in, and I ran through a puddle that was really deep and sort of covered myself in water, and I was so fucked off I sort of ended up walking down the road, and I forgot the bit I was going to send you.
That's okay. Well, text me when it comes back to you.
Will come
Send
back
me a
to
message.
Right, thank you, Stuart.
Thank
We'll let
you,
you get on with
boys.
the rest of your day.
Love that, Stuart.
Thank you so
loved it.
much.
Lovely to see
Great
you.
fun.
Crunch, crunch.
Lovely to see you. Thanks a million, mate.
I'm really invested in crunch, crunch. I really want
I had
crunch.
one this morning. I had a crunch,
Crunch,
crunch. I had a crunch, crunch at the traffic lights today. Lovely,
Crunch,
mate.
crunch.
Crunch, crunch.
Cheers, Stuart.
Bye, mate.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.